I opened the Lost and Loved on the first Monday in April, 2 weeks after my 49th birthday, and exactly 41 years, 8 months, and 9 days after my mother walked out of our little pink house on 37th Street with nothing but her purse and the green dress she wore to church. I remember the dress because I was holding the hem when she knelt to kiss me goodbye. I remember the purse because she let me put my favorite marble, the big blue cat's eye, inside the coin pocket for luck. I remember her face because she smiled like someone trying to memorize me. Then she was gone, and the screen door never slapped shut behind her the way it always did. It just hung open, breathing summer in and out until Mrs. Delgado from next door came looking and found me still standing in the same spot, clutching the marble she'd given back to me because I'd started to cry. They said she ran off with a man. They said she drowned herself in the Savannah River. They said she was taken. They said 100 things, none of them true, all of them sharp enough to cut. I grew up anyway, grew quiet, grew careful, grew into a woman who kept every single thing anyone ever left behind. Single earrings on bar tops, umbrellas in cafe chairs, photographs that slipped from books in the library where I worked for 23 years. I kept them in shoe boxes under my bed, labeled with dates and places, because I understood something the world had never bothered to learn. If something was loved, even for a second, it deserves to find its way home. So when the tiny storefront on Broughton became available, wedged between a closed bookstore and a candle shop that smelled like forgiveness, I took every dime of the inheritance my daddy left when he died, still waiting on the porch every night, painted the door the color of creek water at twilight, and hung a wooden sign hand-lettered in gold, Lost and Loved. If it was loved, it can be found. No questions, no fees, just return. Elle opened on a morning so soft the air felt like the inside of a seashell. At 9:17, a man walked in carrying a left boot. Small scuffed red leather, size 11 child. The kind of boot a little girl would have worn in 1983. He was tall, maybe 70, with carpenter's hands and silver in his beard, and eyes the color of riverstone after rain. He held the boot out like it might break. "I've been keeping this since the summer of '83, he said. A little girl lost it running across Factor's Walk. I was fixing the railing that day. She was crying so hard she didn't even notice it was gone. I picked it up, meaning to run after her, but when I stood up, the only thing left was this boot and a blue one. Marble rolling down the cobblestones. My knees forgot how to work. I sat down hard on the velvet settee I'd rescued from someone's curb. The marble, the boot, the exact day. He kept talking, gentle, like he was afraid of startling a deer. I asked around. Folks said the little girl's mama had disappeared. Said the child, Noli Roo, stopped talking much after that. I figured one day she'd need her boot back. Been carrying it from house to house ever since. Got harder to believe she'd ever come looking, but Elle never could throw it away." He set the boot on the counter between us. "I saw your sign yesterday," he said. Figured 41 years was long enough. Elle couldn't speak. I picked up the boot, and the years poured out of it. The smell of river mud and strawberry shampoo, the sound of my mother laughing because I'd tried to run in shoes 2 sizes too big, the weight of a morning when the world still had her in it. I turned the boot over. On the sole, in purple marker that had almost washed away, was my name in a child's careful block letters. Noli. I started crying the way coastal storms cry, quiet at first, then all at once, like the sky has been holding water for decades and finally lets go. The man, Noah, his name was Noah Calder, didn't try to fix it. He just waited, patient as wood grain, until I could breathe again. Then he reached into his pocket and took out the blue cat's eye marble, the same one, not a replacement, the exact one, its swirl still perfect. "I kept this too," he said. "Thought it went with the boot." Elle took the marble like it was made of moonlight. That was the first thing ever returned to the Lost and Loved. It would not be the last. Word spread the way soft things do in Savannah. Slow, polite, unstoppable. By the end of the first month, people were lining up before Elle opened. They brought single mittens that still smelled like their grandmother's kitchens. Love letters returned by the post office marked deceased. Baby teeth in tiny envelopes, wedding rings found on beaches 20 years after divorces. Gave every item its own shelf, its own story, its own candle burning until the person it belonged to walked through the door. Noah came every morning at 8:30 with coffee and a different kind of quiet. He never asked for anything. He just fixed whatever needed fixing. The creaking floorboard by the poetry shelf, the window that stuck when it rained, the human heart behind the counter that had forgotten how to hope. Some days he brought small wooden boxes he carved himself, lined with velvet, the color of dusk, perfect for holding one earring, one photograph, one impossible thing. I started leaving the door unlocked after closing so he could work late. I started staying to watch him measure twice and cut once. I started falling asleep to the sound of sandpaper and the smell of cedar and the certainty that some men are born knowing how to hold broken things without cutting themselves. 6 months in, a woman brought me a Polaroid. She'd found it wedged in a library book she bought at an estate sale. It showed a young woman in a green dress kneeling on a porch, arms around a little girl with gap teeth and red boots. On the back, in faded ink, Nolly-Bug and Mama, July 1983. Don't forget how big the world is, baby. Elle had to close the shop for 3 days. Noah found me on the floor surrounded by every shoebox I'd ever filled, the Polaroid in my lap like a bird with a broken wing. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just sat with me until the dark came, then carried me to the apartment above the shop, laid me on the couch, and made grits the way his Louisiana grandmother taught him. Slow, constant stirring, a little grace. When I finally spoke, my voice was rust and river water. I thought if Elle found enough lost things for other people, the world would give her back. Noah smoothed my hair like I was something precious and breakable. "Maybe it already is," he said. That night, he showed me the back room I'd been using for storage. He'd cleared it, sanded the floor, built floor-to-ceiling shelves shaped like trees. In the center stood one small empty shelf at child height, waiting. "For whatever comes next," he said. I kissed him then, not soft or careful, like a woman who had spent 41 years learning how to be gentle with everything except herself. We didn't rush after that. We let the shop open and close around us like lungs. We let the lost things come and go. We let the candles burn down to nothing and light new ones. A year became 2. 2 became 5. The Lost and Loved grew roots through the sidewalk cracks. People came from as far as Oregon because someone once told them there was a place in Savannah that believed nothing was ever really gone. Noah's hair went from salt and pepper to snow. My hands grew steady enough to carve the tiny wooden tags we tied to every returned item. Found, loved, home. And every single day at 9:17 exactly, the minute the first boot walked in, Noah would look up from whatever he was fixing and smile at me like the years had been gentle after all. On the morning of the 10th anniversary of opening, I woke to find the shop empty of customers and every shelf bare. Every single lost thing, Thousands of them had been returned while I slept. In their place were paper boats, hundreds of them folded from heavy cream stock, each one holding a single white camellia and a note in handwriting I would know anywhere. Elle picked up the first one with shaking hands. To my Nolly-bug, I never left the way they said. Elle left to keep you safe from a man who hurt me worse than leaving ever could. I walked until my feet bled, until Elle couldn't hear his voice anymore, until Elle found a place where I could breathe and plan and one day come back for you. But every road I took led me further away instead of home. Every year I got sicker. Every year I wrote you letters I'd never sent because I was ashamed of the mother who couldn't protect her little girl. I died in a Charleston hospital in 1997 with your name on my lips and your marble in my hand. A nurse promised to mail everything to you. She never did. But I never stopped walking toward you, baby. Even after my body quit, my love kept going. It took 41 years, 12 detours, and one gentle man with carpenter's hands, but it finally found its way. Look behind the counter. I dropped the note and ran. There, on the shelf where we kept the day's returns, sat a small cedar box. Noah's work, Elle could tell by the dovetails. Inside was the green dress, folded like it had been waiting for church. Inside was my cat's eye marble, warm from someone's pocket. Inside was a stack of letters tied with the same ribbon I used to wear in my hair. And on top was a photograph I had never seen. My mother, older, thinner, sitting on a porch swing somewhere with Spanish moss, holding a baby that could only be the child she had after me, my sister, the one I never knew existed. On the back, in her handwriting, grown frail but unmistakable. To Noli, when you read this, know I finally made it home. Tell the man who kept my boot all those years that his kindness carried me the last mile. Love you bigger than every lost thing you ever found. Mama Elle looked up through tears and saw Noah standing in the doorway, eyes shining, holding the right red boot, the mate to the one he brought the first day. He walked across the floor that no longer creaked, set the boot beside its partner on the child height shelf, and took my hand. "Welcome home, Nolly-bug," he whispered. And for the first time in 41 years, 8 months, and 9 days, I believed the world had kept its promise after all. We never closed the Lost and Loved. We just changed the sign. It still reads, "If it was loved, it can be found." But underneath, in smaller letters Noah carved the week my mother finally came home, it now says, "And sometimes it finds you first." The shop never closed again? Not really. We simply stopped locking the door. Years kept arriving the way tides do in Savannah. Slow, warm, inevitable. The live oaks grew heavier with moss. The tourists learned to step around the camellias that began blooming in the cracks of Broughton Street every April, the month the first boot came home. Children who once pressed their noses to my window, looking for lost teeth, grew up and brought their own children to light candles for things they couldn't yet name. And Noah and I grew older inside the gentle orbit of the Lost and Loved, the way two moons learn to circle the same quiet planet. We never married in the courthouse sense. We married in the way coastal things marry, salt meeting river, moon pulling tide, porch lights left burning for each other every single night. Some mornings I woke to find him already downstairs sanding a new shelf, humming the hymn my mother used to sing while ironing on Sunday afternoons. Some nights he woke to find me on the roof garden we built above the shop, folding paper boats from the letters people still left in the brass mailbox shaped like a camellia. We released them into the tiny fountain Noah built from river stones and the tears we no longer needed to cry alone. Seasons collected like pressed flowers between the pages of our life. In the 5th year after Mama came home, a girl of 11 walked in carrying a lunchbox covered in mermaid stickers. She set it on the counter with trembling hands. "My daddy says you find things that are really, really gone," she whispered. My mommy went to heaven last year. This was her favorite lunchbox when she was little, I thought. Maybe heaven has a Lost and Loved too. Knelt so we were eye level. Heaven uses the same address as here, sweetheart. Leave it with me. 3 weeks later, Noah finished carving a tiny cedar mermaid, no bigger than my thumb. We tucked it inside the lunchbox with a note that simply said, "She's keeping it safe until you're big enough to swim together again." The girl came back every month to check. On the anniversary of her mother's death, the lunchbox was gone from the shelf, and in its place sat a perfect white camellia and a new Polaroid, the little girl asleep in her bed, the lunchbox open on the pillow, the cedar mermaid tucked under her cheek like a promise. She never asked how. She just smiled the way children do when the world remembers how to be kind. Word of that one spread farther than any before it. People began mailing things from other countries. A single ballet slipper from Paris, a dog tag from Da Nang, a child's mitten dropped on the Great Wall. They came with letters that broke and mended my heart in the same breath. Noah built more shelves. I ordered more candles. The shop grew outward and upward until the building itself seemed to breathe with us, walls expanding the way love does when it finally has room. On quiet Tuesdays, we closed the front door, turned the sign to "Back at Dawn," and walked the river at low tide, looking for things the water decided to give back. We found bottles with notes in languages we couldn't read, children's shoes too small for any child now living, and once a mason jar sealed with wax that held a lock of hair the color of river silt and a photograph of twin babies born in 1918 during the Spanish flu. We never found who they belonged to, so we buried the jar under the camellia bush in the courtyard and planted a new bush every year on All Souls Day. The city started calling it the Garden of Almost Home. In our 15th year, a letter came from Charleston. The return address was the hospital where Mama died. Inside was a single sheet of onion skin and a small envelope sealed in 1997. To whomever finds this, her name was Ruth Ann Rue. She came in alone. Late-stage cancer, no ID, but a child's blue marble and a photograph of a little girl with red boots. She died whispering the name Noli over and over. I promised I'd get this to Savannah. Life got in the way. I'm retiring next month and found it in my locker. I'm sorry it took 27 more years. Nurse Caroline Mays. Inside the envelope was Mama's handwriting, shaky but fierce. My Noli bug, if this reaches you, know I tried every day to get back. The man I left wasn't safe for either of us. I thought distance would protect you. I was wrong about so many things, but never about how much I'll love you. Live gentle, love loud, keep looking for lost things. One day the world will bring you the rest of me. I'm proud of the woman you became without me. Forgive me for the years I couldn't be there. I'm with you now, always. Mama, I read it aloud to Noah on the roof at sunset. When I finished, the sky was the exact color of the marble I still carried in my pocket every single day. He took the letter, folded it into the most perfect paper boat I'd ever seen, and set it in the fountain. We watched it float once around the tiny pool, pause beneath the camellia petals that never stopped falling, no matter the season, and then dissolve like sugar in rain. That night we made love on the velvet settee that had held so many weeping people over the years, slow and reverent, like we were thanking every lost thing that had ever passed through our hands for teaching us how to hold each other. Afterward, Noah traced the faint scar on my left palm, a scar I got the week Mama left from gripping that marble too hard. "Still hurts?" he asked. "Only when I forget to open my hand," I said. So he opened it for me, kissed the center, and placed the blue cat's eye in my palm like he was returning the very first thing the universe ever took. 20 years became 30. My hair turned the silver of river moonlight. Noah's hands grew gnarled as the live oak roots that started growing through the shop floor the year the camellias refused to stop blooming. We moved the bed downstairs because stairs became stories we no longer needed to climb. The city tried to give us awards. We hung them in the bathroom so people could read them while washing their hands. We never advertised. We never needed to. The Lost and Loved had become something between church and lighthouse and grandmother's kitchen, a place people came when they were too tired to carry their grief alone. On the morning of the 40th anniversary of opening, I woke to find Noah already gone from bed. I found him in the courtyard at dawn, sitting beneath the oldest camellia bush, holding the original left red boot and its long-lost mate. He looked up when my shadow fell across him. "I think it's time," he said softly. I knew what he meant. Elle had known for months the way his breath caught on certain words, the way he held me a little longer each night, the way he kept carving smaller and smaller cedar boxes like he was practicing for one that would fit just his heart. I sat beside him and took his hand. "Promise me something," he said. "Anything. When I'm the lost thing, don't look too hard. I won't be far." I started to protest, but he pressed the boots into my lap. "I've been found noli. 49 years ago, on a summer morning, when a little girl lost her boot, and I decided the world was worth keeping promises for. Every day since has just been the long way home." He died 3 weeks later, peaceful in the shop, surrounded by every candle we'd ever lit for someone else's lost love. He was holding my hand and the blue marble. His last words were the same ones he'd said the first day he walked in with the boot. 41 years was long enough. We buried him under the camellia bush that grew from the mason jar of 1918 twins. The whole city came. They brought no flowers, only lost things they no longer needed to carry. Single earrings, old love letters, baby shoes. We laid them all on the grave like the softest blanket. Elle kept the shop open every day after. Some mornings I swear Elle can smell coffee brewing before I wake, hear sandpaper whispering across new wood, feel the brush of calloused fingers tucking hair behind my ear. People still come. They always will. And every single day at 9:17 a.m., the bell above the door chimes once, gentle as a heartbeat, even when no one is there to push it. I'll look up from whatever I'm doing and smile at the empty air. Then I go back to work. Because some things are never really lost. They just take the long way around through 41 years, through red boots and blue marbles, through cedar boxes and camellia petals, through every gentle hand that ever kept something safe until the right heart was ready to open again. And when people ask how the Lost and Loved stays open year after year, candle after candle, promise after promise, I'll tell them the truth. It's simple. Nothing that was ever loved is ever truly gone.